My name is Lacey Sanders, and I'm 31 years old. Early December, my phone buzzed with a text from Mom. Christmas. This year is just your brother's family. I stared at the screen for 3 seconds, smiled, and typed back, no problem. Little did they know, I'd already bought a $2 million resort-style home in Scottsdale, complete with a pool that lights up the desert night. I opened my contacts and quietly invited every relative they hadn't, plus a few friends who had actually been there for me. By the time the first photo hit social media, their exclusive little dinner looked empty compared to my packed house. Phones everywhere were blowing up, and for a good reason. If you've ever been the sibling left off the guest list, hit subscribe right now. These stories turn invisible into unforgettable. Growing up in a suburb outside Tucson, Arizona, I was always in my brother Evan's shadow. He was 4 years older, built like a cereal box athlete, and the house revolved around his schedule from the moment he could grip a football. My efforts barely registered. Polite acknowledgments at best. At 12, I spent weeks preparing for a regional coding contest sponsored by the local library system. The challenge was to build software optimizing delivery routes for food bank trucks. I mapped neighborhoods, factored in traffic patterns, and tested the algorithm on my clunky desktop until it shaved 23% off average times. On the day of the event, I wore my only blazer and presented to a panel of engineers. They announced me as first-place winner, handed over a polished trophy, and invited me to a statewide showcase. I carried the award home on the bus, rehearsing how to describe the project. Mom was in the living room folding laundry when I walked in. I held up the trophy. I won regionals, I said. She glanced over. That's great, honey. Then the front door slammed. Evan burst through, still in his muddy uniform. Mom, I threw the game winner in overtime, he shouted. She dropped the socks, enveloped him in a hug, and started calling relatives before he finished the story. Dad arrived minutes later, slapped Evan on the back, and suggested framing the newspaper clipping. My trophy ended up on a bookshelf behind family photos, gathering dust next to outdated encyclopedias. 4 years later, at 16, I poured late nights into an app that synchronized school assignments, practice schedules, and weekend shifts for everyone in the house. It pulled deadlines from teacher portals, color-coded priorities, and sent reminders 15 minutes before conflicts. I demoed it for Dad one evening while he graded papers at the dining table. The interface loaded clean on his tablet, green for clear, yellow for caution, red for overlap. He scrolled through a sample, eyebrows raised for half a second. Handy tool, he conceded, then closed the cover. Evan's recruiter from the state called today. Full academic ride, if he keeps his grades up. We're touring campus next month. I exported the app to his device anyway, set up auto updates, and watched him navigate straight to sports highlights. The program ran perfectly, but he never mentioned it again. I stopped expecting fanfare. Resentment would have required energy I didn't have, so I adapted. Report cards with straight A's earned a quick, good job, before conversation shifted to Evan's playoff brackets. Science fair ribbons collected in a drawer, while his jerseys hung in the hallway like banners. Dinner discussions mapped his recruitment letters. My freelance coding gigs that covered phone bills went unacknowledged. The pattern was clear. His milestones demanded celebration. Mine warranted tolerance. I learned to measure success in functional code and quiet competence, not applause. After high school, I headed to Arizona State to study tech business. No scholarship, all on my own. I crossed the state from Tucson in a packed sedan, tuition loans looming like storm clouds, determined to carve a path separate from Evan's. Campus orientation felt like a fresh start. I bypassed social events and buried myself in lectures on scalable systems and market validation. Nights blurred into shifts at a diner near campus, serving late-night study crowds while outlining business models on napkins. The housing crisis hit sophomore year. Students battled Craigslist scams and sudden lease terminations, losing deposits to ghost landlords. I prototyped an app during finals week that verified sublets through university IDs, processed payments via secure gateways, and flagged suspicious listings with community reports. Launch came junior year under the name DormSwap, intuitive search filters, calendar syncs, and escrow holds until move-in confirmation. Early adopters spread it through residence halls. Downloads climbed to 5,000 in the first semester. I managed servers from my dorm bunk, fixed bugs between classes, and pitched at demo days for seed grants that covered hosting fees. Momentum built until a platform policy shift crippled integrations, user complaints surged, and a funded rival flooded campuses with ads. Revenue from premium features couldn't keep pace with mounting costs. 14 months after launch, debt reached $40,000 in loans and vendor bills. I archived the code, notified users, and closed the chapter with a final status update. No one in Tucson noticed. Mom called during move-out. "Heard your little project folded," she said casually. Dad added over the line, "Evan, coach's now steady district job. Health plan. Teaching suit. Stability." I stacked boxes in silence, processing the different paths I'd managed before hanging up. Soon after, a luxury villa rental firm in Phoenix offered me a coordinator role. The office managed estates with private theaters and chef-ready kitchens. I scheduled cleanings, negotiated owner commissions, and solved guest issues, like malfunctioning gate codes at midnight. Exposure to occupancy trends and pricing strategies revealed untapped potential in curated short-term luxury. Graduation arrived with valedictorian honors and a capstone on blockchain for hospitality. The ceremony filled the arena, but our family row stayed empty. Mom texted mid-morning. Evan's team reached nationals. Flights booked to Phoenix. I walked the stage alone, diploma in hand, applause echoing without familiar cheers. A real estate tech conference downtown changed everything. During a break, I recognized Dylan Carter from an algorithms seminar, the guy who always carried energy bars and debated scalability. We grabbed coffee and swapped startup scars. He had optimized rental yields at a boutique firm. "Luxury's fragmented," he noted. "Owners hate fees. Guests want reliability." Ideas flowed. Vetted properties, concierge matching, dynamic rates. We exchanged contacts and sketched what would become Lux Stay on a notepad before panels resumed. That summer, Evan married Delaney Harper, daughter of a resort empire spanning the Southwest. The wedding dominated family updates, venue tours, menu tastings, guest lists curated for influence. Mom and Dad gushed about the elevated status and elite circles this alliance opened. I sent a card from afar, focused on the blueprint Dylan, and I refined nightly. At 25, I poured everything into Lux Stay with Dylan. We started in a converted garage behind his rental house. 2 laptops on a folding table, whiteboards covering every wall with user flows and revenue projections. The app curated only top-tier villas and resorts, with private chefs on call and helicopter transfers available. No shared pools with strangers. Owners paid us to handle marketing and guest vetting. Travelers paid a premium for seamless booking with 0 surprises. We bootstrapped the first 6 months, living off savings and late-night coding sessions fueled by takeout tacos. Growth came in waves. A celebrity influencer posted about a Scottsdale estate we listed, and inquiries doubled overnight. We hired our first employee, a concierge from a 5-star hotel who could source yacht rentals on demand. Word spread through private networks, hedge fund managers seeking discreet getaways, tech executives hosting offsites. By year 2, we expanded inventory to Hawaii and Aspen, adding a membership tier with priority access and loyalty points redeemable for spa credits. Dylan handled engineering upgrades while I negotiated exclusive partnerships with property management firms in Miami and Napa. We opened a small office in downtown Phoenix, then a satellite in South Beach to cover East Coast listings. Staff grew to 50 across development, customer experience, and sales, each vetted for discretion. Since our clients valued privacy above all, revenue streams diversified. We took a 15% commission on bookings, charged owners for professional photography and virtual staging, and launched a white-label service for boutique hotel chains wanting our tech stack. Quarterly reports showed 7-figure months, and venture firms began circling with term sheets. Dylan and I debated offers over breakfast burritos, weighing control against capital. We chose a strategic partner who understood luxury hospitality while letting us retain board seats. The infusion funded AI-driven pricing that adjusted rates based on demand signals, festival lineups, celebrity sightings nearby. User reviews averaged 4.9 stars, with guests raving about details like pre-stocked fridges, matching dietary preferences submitted during booking. For years in, a major hospitality conglomerate approached with an acquisition proposal. Negotiations stretched over conference calls and step dinners in Manhattan, lawyers dissecting every clause. The final deal closed at $20 million in cash and stock. No earnout cliffs. After taxes and splitting evenly with Dylan, $10 million landed in my account. I stared at the wire confirmation for a full minute, then closed the banking app and started house hunting. Scottsdale real estate agents flooded my inbox, but one property stopped me mid-scroll. A 5-bedroom contemporary built into the desert hillside, infinity pool cascading toward Red Rock views, outdoor kitchen with pizza oven, and a guest casita separate from the main house. The layout screamed resort. Fire pit circling a central courtyard, smart shades lowering at sunset, and a home theater with recliners vibrating during action scenes. I walked the grounds at dusk, felt the quiet wrap around me, and made a cash offer that night. Escrow closed in 21 days, and I signed the papers in jeans while the seller toasted with champagne. $2 million exchanged hands, and the keys felt heavier than any trophy I'd ever held. I kept the purchase off the family radar. Annual Christmas trips to Tucson continued like clockwork. I flew commercial into Tucson International, rented a mid-sized sedan, and crashed on the same pull-out couch in the basement. Mom asked about work. I told her I managed guest services for a hotel chain, which wasn't entirely false. Dad nodded approval at the steady hours, comparing it favorably to Evan's coaching schedule. Delaney hosted holiday dinners in their new build with a chef's kitchen, and I brought store-bought cookies to avoid questions. No one noticed the designer watch or the subtle shift in my posture. To maintain the Scottsdale house, without constant travel, I hired Blake as property manager. Recommended by a Luxstay owner, he was a former military officer, meticulous with checklists and discreet as a vault. Blake coordinated weekly cleaners using hypoallergenic products, scheduled pool chemistry tests, and stocked the pantry with essentials before I even arrived. He installed security cameras tied to my phone, arranged landscaping that survived 100-degree summers, and handled HOA correspondence, so I never saw a single email. The first time I arrived after closing, he met me at the gate with a folder of warranties and a cold bottle of sparkling water. "Everything's ready, Miss Sanders," he said. I corrected him. Lacey. Handed over a spare key fob and watched the automatic gates close behind my car. For the first time, the place truly felt like mine. Early December, my phone buzzed with a text from Mom. The message popped up while I scrolled emails at the kitchen island. "Christmas this year is just Evan's family. We wanted to intimate with Delaney's side. They own that big resort chain." I read it twice, set the phone face down, and felt that familiar twist in my stomach, the one that told me my spot at the table had shrunk again. No explanation, no apology, just the assumption I'd roll with it like always. I opened the family group chat, muted for years, and started dialing numbers I hadn't touched since the last holiday. Uncle Frank picked up on the second ring, sounding surprised. "Your mom said the guest list is tight this year," he grumbled. "Something about keeping it classy for the in-laws." Aunt Jessica echoed the same line, adding that invitations had gone out weeks ago, and her name wasn't on any envelope. Aunt Diane laughed bitterly over speakerphone while wrapping grandkids' gifts. They said the house couldn't fit everyone, but I knew it was about who looked good in photos. By the 15th call, the pattern was clear. Every relative outside Evan's immediate circle got the polite brush-off, excused for not being on brand, with Delaney's upscale crowd. The idea formed mid-conversation with a cousin in Sierra Vista. Instead of sulking, I'd host my own. I texted Dylan for backup. He replied with a thumbs up and a spreadsheet template. Within an hour, I drafted invites to the exact people Mom excluded. Uncle Frank, Aunt Jessica, Aunt Diane, cousins from both sides, old high school friends who stayed in touch, former Luxstay colleagues who understood discretion. The list hit 32 names. a mix of blood and chosen family tired of playing second string. I sent a simple message on Christmas Eve from my Scottsdale place. Flights on me. Say yes. Confirmations rolled in faster than bookings during peak season. Logistics kicked into gear. The same afternoon, Blake pulled airport schedules and booked first-class tickets out of Tucson, Phoenix, and Flagstaff, timing arrivals to avoid holiday delays. He arranged private SUVs with drivers holding signs at baggage claim, routes mapped to beat Phoenix traffic. I contacted a catering company I'd used for client events and secured Marco as head chef. He specialized in Italian fusion, perfect for a crowd craving comfort over pretense. We planned a menu around build-your-own pasta stations, wood-fired pizzas from the outdoor oven, and a dessert bar with tiramisu shots in edible cups. Marco emailed ingredient lists, and I approved premium cuts and imported cheeses without blinking at the invoice. Gifts came next, personalized to show I paid attention. Uncle Frank golfed every weekend, so I ordered a custom driver fitted to his swing specs and engraved with his initials. Aunt Jessica collected vintage jewelry. A pearl necklace from a Tahiti supplier arrived in velvet boxing. Aunt Diane coached youth soccer, so I wrapped noise-canceling headphones for plane rides and a luxury spa voucher for post-season recovery. For the kids, tablets preloaded with games and parental controls. Adults got monogrammed leather travel pouches stocked with noise-canceling earbuds and portable chargers. I addressed each package myself, tying ribbons that matched the desert sunset palette Blake suggested for decor. Venue prep fell entirely to Blake. He hired extra staff for setup, strung market lights across the courtyard, had technicians install the sound system for background jazz, and arranged centerpieces with succulents and white roses. The infinity pool received a full drain and refill, water warmed to 82 degrees for anyone brave enough to swim. In December, he stocked the bar with top-shelf tequila and a carefully curated wine selection, plus non-alcoholic options for designated drivers. Guest rooms received fresh linens, robes monogrammed with initials, and welcome baskets filled with local dates and prickly pear candies. Blake ran checklists like a general, confirming every detail down to the exact number of champagne flutes. By the time the last RSVP locked in, the house hummed with controlled chaos. I stood on the patio one evening, watching workers test the fire pits, and realized this wasn't revenge. It was reclamation. The people flying in had celebrated my quiet wins when no one else bothered. Now they'd see the life I'd built without fanfare. Mom's text stayed unanswered in my notifications, a reminder of the line I finally drew. Christmas Eve morning, I checked the patio lights. The strands glowed soft amber against the stone, reflecting off the pool like scattered coins. Blake had finished the final walkthrough an hour earlier, confirming every outlet worked and that the backup generator stood ready. I adjusted one flickering bulb, then stepped back to survey the courtyard transformed into an outdoor dining room under the open sky. The first SUV pulled through the gates at 10 sharp. Uncle Frank stepped out in his best polo, eyes widening as the driver unloaded luggage. He turned in a slow circle, taking in the casita wings and the hillside beyond. "Lacey, this isn't a house," he said, voice cracking. "This is a damn resort in Scottsdale." I laughed and hugged him, feeling his shoulders shake with disbelief. Aunt Diane arrived minutes later, heels clicking on the pavers. She stopped at the threshold, mouth open, tears spilling before a word left her lips. "You did all this," she whispered, pulling me close. "And they tried to leave you out." Guests arrived in waves, each reaction building on the last. Cousins snapped photos by the entrance fountain. Former colleagues marveled at the golf simulator in the lower level. Dylan mixed mimosas at the outdoor bar, trading stories with old Luxstay developers who'd flown in from Miami. Kids cannonballed into the heated pool despite the cool air, parents too stunned to scold. Marco directed his team from the pizza oven, flipping dough with theatrical spins while sauce simmered in copper pots. The scent of garlic and basil drifted through the house, mixing with the pine from the 12-foot tree dominating the great room. As sunset painted the mountains pink, we moved the feast outside. Long tables stretched 20 feet, draped in desert sand linens, set with chargers that caught the string lights. Marco presented family-style platters, lobster ravioli in saffron cream, oozing osso buco falling off the bone, grilled vegetables glazed with balsamic. Wine flowed from bottles uncorked with practiced pops. Conversation rose in layers, laughter at one end, quiet catching up at the other. Uncle Frank raised his glass mid-meal, to the host who turned exclusion into the best Christmas any of us have known. Cheers echoed off the stone walls. The doorbell chimed at 7:30, cutting through the music. Blake answered and returned with a petite figure bundled in a wool coat. Grandma Ellen shrugged off the garment, revealing a festive red sweater despite the desert warmth. "I told your mother I had the flu," she announced, eyes twinkling. "Caught the first flight out instead." She hugged me so tight my feet lifted off the ground. "No way I'd miss this, sweetheart. Not after what they pulled." She settled at the head table as if she'd always belonged, accepting a plate from Marco and charming the kids with stories of my awkward middle school phase. Dylan captured the moment on his phone. Group shots around the tree, Grandma Ellen toasting with sparkling cider, pool lights shifting from blue to gold. He posted a carousel to Instagram with the caption, "Family is who shows up in Scottsdale." Within minutes, likes poured in from guest accounts, tags flying across time zones. Cousins in Sierra Vista screenshotted and shared in side chats. By dessert, cannoli towers and espresso avocado tarts, the post had hundreds of reactions, all from people Mom had deemed unworthy. At 8:40, my phone vibrated. Evan's name flashed. I excused myself to the study, closed the French doors, and answered on speaker. "You're embarrassing the family," he started without greeting. "Delaney's parents saw the pictures. They're questioning our image." I leaned against the desk. "This is my house, Evan, not your stage." He kept going. "Take it down. People think we're dysfunctional." Grandma Ellen slipped in quietly, listening from the doorway. "Dysfunction started when you decided who mattered," she whispered. I said, "Enjoy your intimate dinner." I ended the call, powered the phone off, and returned to the party, where no one even noticed the interruption. The next morning I sat by the pool with coffee. The water lay flat under a clear sky, steam curling from my mug while notifications stacked silently on the table. Guests had departed in waves, leaving thank you notes tucked under pillows and half-eaten pastries on counters. Blake organized the cleanup crew before sunrise, but I waved him off for an hour of quiet. The phone finally demanded attention. 23 missed calls, all from Tucson numbers. Mom rang first. Her voice cracked the moment I answered. "Lacey, please pick up the pieces. Everyone's talking." She spoke in fragments, describing the fallout, relatives canceling New Year plans, old friends asking pointed questions at the grocery store. Dad's tone was softer than I remembered. "We were wrong to prioritize appearances.
Come home.
We'll make it right." I listened without interrupting, watching a lizard dart across the patio stones. Evan grabbed the line last. "You owe us an explanation," he demanded. "Delaney's father pulled the endorsement deal, 6 figures gone, because of your stunt." I set down my mug. "I don't owe anyone a performance," I said. "I chose peace over pretending." Mom sobbed in the background. Evan muttered about lawsuits. I ended the call and blocked every contact tied to that house. Word traveled faster than holiday traffic. A cousin in Sierra Vista forwarded an email from Delaney's father, citing brand misalignment as the reason to terminate Evan's ambassador contract with the resort chain. The agreement had promised quarterly shoots at flagship properties, social media takeovers, and a clothing line launch. All vanished overnight. Evan's coaching side gig stayed intact, but the public loss stung. Local news picked up the drama under headlines about family values in hospitality. Mom and Dad discovered invitations drying up for future gatherings. Aunts who once hosted potlucks now cited scheduling conflicts. Neighbors stopped waving from driveways. Their Christmas card list shrank before the decorations came down. I transferred funds the same week. Grandma Ellen had mentioned wanting a smaller place closer to warmth. Tired of southern Arizona heat, I wired enough for a 2-bedroom condo in a Scottsdale senior community, gated, with a pool and a shuttle to shops. She called after the realtor confirmed closing. You didn't have to, she said, but her voice carried relief. I already packed the good plates. Blake handled the logistics, coordinating movers, and a welcome basket of her favorite teas. She settled in before January, sending photos of the cactus garden visible from her patio. The silence that followed felt earned. No more obligatory texts about Evan's milestones. No guilt trips disguised as concern. Dylan checked in once, asking if I needed legal cover. I told him the best defense was distance. Former guests reached out with updates. Uncle Frank booking a golf trip with club credit I gifted Aunt Diane, friends planning a girls' weekend at a luxe stay property. Their messages carried gratitude without expectation. I replied to each, keeping threads open for the people who showed up when it counted. Looking back, the lesson crystallized over quiet mornings like this one. Favoritism doesn't just hurt the overlooked, it poisons the favored too, building expectations no one can sustain. Evan learned that image is fragile when truth goes viral. Mom and Dad discovered social capital evaporates without genuine connection. I learned boundaries aren't walls. They're doors I control. Success shared selectively builds real community. Success flaunted for approval breeds isolation.